Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Late Departure. I'm Adam, and as some of you may know, this is my continuing journey to hopefully becoming an airline pilot at some point here. And you probably haven't seen me for a little while here, but I've been super busy studying. Honestly, the flight instructor rating is very challenging. There's a lot of expectations to be very skillful at flying, be at really your top possible capability so that you can always demonstrate stuff perfectly for your students. But on top of that, as an educator, I have this large feeling of responsibility for being able to teach things really well and knowing all my stuff. So, I'm always constantly doing things like flashcards and studying all my resources. And, I have so many resources that I hope one day I'll be able to share with you guys. But, I'm just constantly putting together lists of formulas and all kinds of stuff that I need to know to be a good flight instructor. So that's my goal. And that's why I haven't been around very much. And that's going to be what it's sort of going to be like for the next little while here, because, I'm about a third of my way through my flight instructor rating here. I'm working really hard. And so for the foreseeable future, yeah, I probably won't be uploading as much, but I have a lot of videos to edit and upload in the future here. So I look forward to finally having some time to do that. But in the meantime, yeah, study takes priority. But I thought I haven't made something in a while, and it was about time that I kind of continue my origin story series, because I had been doing that for a while, and it was really great. I got to hear from a lot of people from around the world, from places that I had visited before. And the next phase of my origin story is kind of a bittersweet one. And it's kind of interesting because if you haven't seen it, I'll put the link somewhere around here to the last video where I had gone to Japan to try to find Yukiko, and she's the one who made me absolutely fall in love with Japan. Even up until now, I adore the country. I love the culture, the food, the people, everything. And so I was really into Japanese stuff, and I had been going around, and I was a translator for a bunch of things. I was a translator for an old book called Genji Monogatari, and I also did quite a few things. I went to Japan for a big conference that was celebrating the 1,000-year anniversary of Genji Monogatari, and I was also a translator for the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver and all kinds of stuff. So I did a lot of stuff with Japan, but shortly thereafter, as I continued my studies, where I was at the time studying, all these Asian languages like Chinese and Japanese, one of my closest friends was Korean, and so I had spent a bit of time learning about Korean culture and Korean society. And it just so happened that one day I was at an event that I was volunteering for. It was like an international student thing at my university. And I met someone, and, I ended up liking her a lot, and she was Korean, and I ended up going to Korea. And so that kind of opened up a new chapter, which is kind of what I'm going to talk about today, which is probably one of the biggest chapters of my life, because I ended up spending about 10 years in Korea. And it was a great place, honestly. I've actually known quite a few flight instructors who go out to Korea to save up money by teaching English to pay for their training and stuff. I'm not sure how lucrative it is these days because I haven't been there for a while, but when I was there, I was able to do quite a few interesting jobs. And I see in this picture here, this is when I first arrived there. I'm a lot younger than I am now, you can see for sure. But at the time, I had a few jobs. I got a job tutoring the vice president of LG Electronics, and I was getting paid ridiculous amounts of money, like over $100 an hour, just to sit down and read newspapers with this guy. And then I was teaching at all these schools, and I think these two may have been students at one of the schools that I was teaching at there. And even that job, I felt kind of bad about it at the time, because I was teaching alongside Korean teachers as well. And even though we were doing the same job, I was getting paid like double or triple what they were. I was getting more than a fair full-time salary for working part-time pretty much, whereas the Korean teachers are working overtime and dealing with the parents and all that kind of stuff. And it was really rough for them. But at the time, I guess it was sort of a foreigner privilege there. And so for me, it was very helpful going to Korea to save up money for my flight training. And it was really instrumental to getting where I am right now. That being said, I had a lot of, and I was talking about this with one of my other friends the other day. I had a lot of eggs in different baskets because, there's always different things that can happen. You can, COVID can happen. All of a sudden you lose your flight job. And so I was trying to diversify my interests and kind of having things all over the place there. So I was teaching. I was also teaching at the university. I was doing things like ballroom dancing, and I was, all kinds of stuff. I was doing Korean mask dance, and so I basically tried to diversify. And also, I was doing grad school at the time as well. So I actually have a few master's degrees, and and doing my PhD and all that kind of stuff. I did all these things while I was out in Korea there. So ultimately, I was trying to plan for various eventualities depending on what opportunities showed themselves to me at which times. So that's sort of my idea, and that's sort of how I went to Korea, and that was my mindset. And as I said, it's sort of bittersweet because there are some really good times like this, meeting some people. I also had jobs like this one here. I was recording textbooks. So if you go and read a bunch of Korean English textbooks for a lot of the schools out there, a lot of the men's voices were mine. So I did the readings for a lot of the textbooks, for the dialogues and things like that. And I also did like a whole bunch of accents, and so I'd be doing these things like talking like an Australian or something like that, or hello, I'm from England, or something really terrible. I did really bad accents, and I was like the characters for all of these readings. So if you're from Korea, you might recognize my voice in some of the big language school reading resources there. Anyways, yeah, and here I am. This is just the reflection off the booth there, or the glass in the booth. You can see our recording studio. But I did a lot of stuff. I was actually in the newspaper a lot of times in Korea. Whenever I go anywhere, I always do my best to have fun and have a good time and enjoy myself, and make lots of friends. And I think it's really important in life to really get the most out of it. Meet as many people as you can, talk with as many people as you can. There's unlimited possibilities and opportunities that can be afforded to you if you really, you're outgoing and you're friendly and you're understanding, and you're empathetic, and all these kinds of things. And so I did what I could. And this was one of the newspapers I was in. There's actually another one that I have where I was being lauded as this foreigner who absolutely loves Korea. And yeah, you can see I was having a lot of fun there. This is a soccer competition, or not soccer, this is like the FIFA World Cup. And every time there was a World Cup, it was such an amazing experience in Korea. It's so much fun, everyone's cheering, everyone's singing songs. There's like all these set songs for it. Everyone's just having a really good time. And so here I am having a really good time in one of the newspapers there, of me just playing the Bubuzela. They say the 부부젤라 불며 한국 응원하는 외국인, which means like the foreigner who's cheering for Korea with the vuvuzela, and I had like two of them going there. Anyways, yeah, I think that's really important. That's a good lesson out of life, to just really have fun, enjoy yourself. And I met so many amazing friends. On the left is Wei. She was a really close friend of mine. And on the right there's Ian, who's still a really close friend of mine. I still try to talk with him as much as I can. And then Philip, man, I need to do a video just talking about Philip sometime, because we spend a lot of time, like I went to visit him in the misty mountains of Kyoto in Japan, where he was training to become a samurai. And, even he came out to Korea a bunch of times, and we had some absolutely crazy adventures of just, traveling around the country, going to bathhouses, just living life to the fullest. He's an amazing guy as well. But yeah, Wei was someone I studied with her when I was studying Korean language, and she became a really close friend, and I learned so much from her, and Ian as well. Ian was like my best friend in Korea, still a close friend of mine, really great guy. And he, we did a whole bunch of stuff together out in Korea. There, we'd go out and watch movies, and in Korea they'd have these giant bottles of beer that you could buy for very cheap, and we go to the movies and drink beer and watch terrible movies and just have a good time, because And this is sort of one of the bittersweet things. Life wasn't easy at all. Life was very, very hard out there. Like all of us were working at least 14, 16, 18-hour days. Even for students, like I was there and I was a grad student, and so I was working as a grad student full time, and it was expected that, after you work, you go drinking almost every day, and you'd be expected to work until very late. I had a junior in my office when I was working in Korea, and junior just means someone who's younger than you. And one day I was working late because I was working on something, and she stayed in the office until like 10 o'clock at night. And every time I asked her what she's doing, she goes, "Oh, I'm just working, I'm just working." And then as I'm leaving and she starts to leave, and I asked her, "Why are you leaving?" And she said, "Well, it's rude for me to leave before someone older than me, before my sonbae." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, I felt really bad because she ended up staying so late, but it was kind of the culture, you'd be expected to stay until, everyone has finished their work, and you'd always be drinking, always be doing these things. So going out and drinking and watching movies like at 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday nights, that was really kind of a way to unwind out there. Now, of course, these days I don't really drink at all. Actually, I don't drink at all. Maybe because I was scarred from this experience in Korea of drinking so much, but it was fun, but it was also kind of painful. It was difficult. All my hair had turned white. I was really stressed out. I was really tired, and that was just kind of the thing, right? So yeah, there's another one here. This is again me with Phil, at some random Korean tea place having some traditional tea. And then me and Wei again, we went to like all the festivals. I think this was one of the Lantern festivals. Wow, 2013, a solid almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, there were so many events and stuff like that. And if we did have time, we'd always try to go out to them and have our fill of fun. So this is me with, I think, either a group of students of mine at the time because I was teaching there, or some friends. And famously, the two big universities there, well, there are three, the Sky University, Seoul University, Korea, and Yonsei. I went to Yonsei, and of course, every year, Korea University and Yonsei University have this huge sports competition. For us, they called it Yeongo-jeon, Yonsei University, Korea, and jeon is like a match. If you go to Korea, they said Koyeonjeon. But we'd go to this big event, and we'd be watching all the sports games. Everyone would be cheering, and this was just a huge event for us. And that was another friend of mine over on the left there. I'm trying to remember who that was. I had too many friends there in Korea. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it would just be all this kind of thing, just traveling around and having a lot of fun. But these were sort of like mandatory events that everyone needs to really attend and stuff like that. It was kind of a big thing for the school, but it was also fun. People enjoyed it, and it was interesting. And this is, I think, when I graduated from one of my master's degrees, and this is just in front of the main building at Yonsei University. It's very interesting. Out there in Korea, you have a large amount of kind of Christianity there, so you see a lot of that in a lot of the architecture and a lot of the places and a lot of the people. And the motto of the university, you can see there right in the middle, was it 진리가 너희를 자유케 하리라, which means the truth will set you free. A famous expression. I'm not sure exactly which verse or book that is from, but yes, it's one of those kinds of things. So this was a whole bunch of people from my department that I had been studying with at the university there. You can see me way down in the end there in the very middle in my bright yellow sweater. Clearly a little differently clothed than other people here, but yeah, we'd have all these people. And one of the things, it was kind of nice, like everyone was very close, sort of like a family, but on the other end, it was also very, and I guess this is just sort of something that happens out there, it's a very tight relationship. And, in Korea, people don't usually say I, they usually say we. They say like uri for something. Uriga, uri는, like we do this, we do that, we are something, we are this, we are that. And it's a cool thing because, you always have that sort of sense of belonging, and you're always part of that group and part of that family. But on the other hand, one thing that I found very challenging as a Canadian was that, I wanted to do things and I wanted to, have some freedom in the way that I thought and the way that I did things. But I didn't really have that freedom there because I had to kind of follow along with what everyone else was doing. And again, this is another one of those sort of bittersweet things where, there's a good side to it, but there was also not so good side to it, which I struggled with sometimes, especially. And one of the big reasons, and for any of you out there in Korea who are wondering why I left, well, there were a bunch of reasons why I left, but one of the biggest reasons was that, I didn't have a family in Korea. I had spent a lot of my time, I was always working, I was always studying, I was always, I never had really any free time, and I had very little free time to go out and, do things like dating and of course, because I don't have my parents there or anything like that, I had to do everything myself, which is, just normal life, living by yourself. You got to do your own laundry, you got to take care of your food, cleaning, all that kind of stuff. That's fine. The problem though was that, especially with like a group, almost everyone here had their family together living with them, and so they had help with things like laundry or help with things like food and things like that. And one thing that people never really, I guess, empathize with me about was the fact that I was alone living by myself. And so if I had to say, hey, I need a few hours today so I can do my laundry or something like that, people weren't really understanding of that. And I think that may have just been my group there, because it was a very tight-knit group, and it was also very close group, and there were a lot of rules and there was a lot of structure in that group, and so there wasn't a lot of freedom for me to even do my laundry. And I honestly felt really bad about that. It made me upset quite a few times that I didn't even have no time to unwind, no time to relax, but more so no time to even take care of myself. And I felt pretty bitter about that like everyone else was going home to like their families or something like that, but I was going home, when I was going home, to just, myself. And there was no one there to help me with that. Again, I think that's the reality for anyone who moves out and lives alone and does something. But it was especially difficult here because not everyone has to work like 16, 18-hour days, right? And keep in mind, these times I was only sleeping 3-4 hours every night because it was just the way that we worked and lived there. So in the very little free time that I did have, I really desperately wanted to get back into some of the things I did in Canada, like ballroom dance. So here's a poster. I actually started the ballroom dance club at my university there to mimic what I did in the University of British Columbia, where I was the president of the dance club way back when I was a student there. And I actually brought together the 3 big universities, and we created Kudu. So, and this is an instructor that I worked with there, and he was also instrumental in helping bring together the clubs, because I got him to come by and instruct the classes and stuff like that, kind of like how we had people come by and instruct classes at University of British Columbia there. And here's all of us together. This was not all of us, this was a group of people from one of them, but basically Kudu was the Korean Universities Dance Sport United. So I was trying to create something for everyone to kind of get together. And dance sport wasn't super huge out there, but it's something that, some people did here and there, and I enjoyed ballroom dance a lot. So it was a really great kind of opportunity for me to, be able to dance and spread my love of dance, and also get to meet cool new people and bring together people who were doing ballroom dance in Korea. So that was another interesting little adventure I had there. So this brings us to another interesting thing that I was doing there. I was also known in the media. This is actually a group of people. I think the young lady in the yellow on the right, she was a famous news reporter in Korea there, and my professor, she did kind of like senior exercise stuff, like especially dances related with traditional Korean culture for senior people to help them with their health. And so as part of my job with her was I had to go on and go on national TV and do these dances. And I actually was able to dig up one video of this, and I'll show you some of this this dancing here. But this was like, these were some of the people that we did it with, and it was something that, again, it took a lot of time. I'd be off doing these photo shoots and these filmings on national TV. And yeah, let's take a look at some of it. Oh gosh, that's a picture of me in a really weird face doing this exercise. Yeah, it probably looks even more interesting in the video. All right, so this is the thing. It was this, there's me, you can see on the left side of the screen there, doing this thing. You could tell that, you know, I wasn't really as in it as some of the other people here. I wasn't really in it to win it. But, you know, it was something, you know, we were waking up super early after already not having had, like, very much sleep at all, and doing this whole thing, and no, it was very challenging to say the least. But yeah, like all of these kinds of movements you see here, they're all like traditional dance kind of movements, and combined with sort of acupressure theory. And I actually had to, as part of one of my jobs, was I had to translate an entire book of ancient Chinese like acupressure techniques or something like that, which unfortunately, again, I actually went back to Canada to visit my parents, and I went on a short trip with my father, and I think we went like camping somewhere, and I spent almost the entire trip sitting next to him in the car just translating stuff, because that's how much work we had to do. That's how incredibly intense it was. So yeah, we did all that stuff. I translated this thing. So all these movements where you see like people like hitting themselves and you know, like hitting their shoulders. There are all these theories that are saying things like, you know, if you hit your shoulder at this certain spot, it'll cure cancer or something like that. Some of it was pretty bogus, but you know, some of it was also, you know, like legitimately empirically tested. Like some things that they found where if you do acupressure on some parts of your body, it helps improve circulation. And you know, I do some various forms of this at physiotherapy as well. You know, some of it is legitimate, but some of it is pretty funky. Like some of the claims in some of them where they're saying that you can like cure paralysis or cure cancer or something like that. But yeah, that was just part of my job, to do all these kinds of translations. And you know, having the language ability was really nice, and being able to speak Korean and Japanese and Chinese, and you know, it would allow me to meet tons of people and do some really cool things. But at the same time, I feel like if you can speak all these languages, it may be useful, but maybe a little bit too useful sometimes, because I'd end up having to do all these jobs that, you know, and a lot of them because, and another reason why I'd left is because, you know, it started becoming more of, you know, I was doing more kind of work and labor where I wasn't really getting paid for it, and if I was, it wasn't very much, and I wasn't being able to do my own research and actually further my own studies, which was again one of the eggs that I was trying to put into a basket, to actually go out and study and if possible maybe, you know, become a professor somewhere or something like that. That would have also been a very interesting alternative for me career-wise, and it's something that I did up until I started my flight training again, you know, just until last year. So anyways, going back to the pictures here. So this is us continuing, you know, doing our filming, all that kind of stuff. You saw, man, so much makeup we were wearing and stuff like that for these filming shoots. But it was really funny because I'd be having old people coming up to me in the middle of the streets in Korea saying, "Oh, you're that white guy from the Senior Exercise Channel." And, you know, because these things would be playing so often. And I think I have a picture somewhere. Here we go. And here's a picture. I think this is at the airport or something like that somewhere, where, you know, they have all the TVs up everywhere, and this would just be on national TV all the time. So I'd look up and all of a sudden there I am doing this program. And yeah, people all over the country had known me for it. It was a very, very strange thing to be known for, but you know, it was just, again, it was what I was doing out there. So yeah, what was my life like? Well, on the very few times that I was able to be at home, you know, this is my setup. I had a room that was so small. My room was absolutely tiny. Like the length of the room was the height of my body, and the width of the room was about as far as I can stretch my arms out. So it was a tiny, tiny place. And one of my guilty pleasures was to get the roasted chicken from a place down the street, and you know, watch a movie if I had a moment, and just kind of unwind. And this is how I would unwind, maybe once a week. And wasn't great, but you know, it was my life at that time. You can see hair dye on the top left. I'll go into relationships in Korea at another time. It was a whole deal, but you can tell there was a lot of high standards for skin care and hair dye and all that kind of stuff. It was, man, it was a very, very interesting time. But again, this was probably more of the bitter part of, I was out there and I was having a tough time and I was alone. This picture really just screams out like kind of the loneliness that I'd been facing the entire time that I was there. It was really just a lonely, sad, depressing time where I didn't have anyone to talk to. I was, thousands of miles away from family, and I was just struggling, and I was just doing my best to, do something, because, it's not easy for people these days, for young people to go out and just chase your dream. Like, either you do something standard or you try to do something wild and great. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, spend my 20s in a way that I'd never forget. And as you can see, I pretty much did. I lived my life to the fullest. And while it was difficult and lonely and sad and depressing sometimes, it still was an interesting experience. And every time I talked with friends back home, a lot of people said, wow, that's amazing what you're doing. I kind of didn't think so at the time, but, looking back, I did what I could and I had a lot of fun doing it. Oh, and just a standard thing in Korea, the Korean barbecue. You can see here, you go out and you get some kind of like, I think this is some kind of like maybe roasted beef or something like that. But this would be my night almost every night, going out to barbecue places with colleagues, drinking a lot, all that kind of stuff. This is me out another place, some trendy place probably. I don't even remember what this place was, but somewhere in Gangnam. But yeah, lots of little trendy places like this. You have to go out, and man, you can see the strictness in terms of like what you had to look like back then. Man, it's crazy. Like, look at my hair and my face and stuff like that. Yeah, but a lot of this was just me, going out with people and just, business as usual kind of thing out there. I did have some fun, as you can see here. I went to the zoo as much as I could. They had a really great zoo. It only cost like $3 to enter, and it's one of the biggest zoos in the world. And I'd go there by myself, as often as I could, like once every 2 weeks. Even in the winter, I'd go there, as you can see here, and had a lot of fun. Just, I don't know, it was sort of freedom to me. I don't know why going to the zoo where animals are being held in captivity was like freedom, but this is one of my fondest memories, just going to the zoo and just hanging out and just trying to collect my thoughts, because I didn't get a lot of chances to sit down and just collect my thoughts there when I was living there. And yeah, some other pictures here, the Lantern Festival, all of these are just things that I did while I was out there. The cherry blossoms down by like the Yoido River. I don't know, it's not the Yoido River, it's the Han River near Yoido. But there would be like lines and lines of festival carts selling festival food and stuff like that, and the cherry blossoms, and I'd go with friends and, more often than not go with colleagues and stuff, because that's just kind of what we did. We had to go out together and drink and do all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'd get homesick, so I'd go to places. This place is called like the Real Original Pancake or something like that, and I'd go here just to kind of, I don't know, I was homesick quite a lot, especially near the latter like 5 years. I was there for about 10 years, but in the last 5 years I was there, I was just so lonely and sick all the time and tired that, I got homesick and went to places like this. Although, here's the next thing. This is the stuff that I was usually eating, which is like samgyeopsal with kimchi and all that kind of stuff there. So yeah, this was my normal fare almost every single day, what I was eating in Korea. But yeah, that's about it. So what happened ultimately is basically I kept doing the work. I kept kind of getting stymied and stuck. I wasn't able to sort of escape the cycle of work and kind of free labor that I was doing there. And I also wasn't happy with, what was happening relationship wise, personal life wise. I was lonely, I was sad, I was depressed, and things just at one point just weren't moving forward for me. And I knew that, I needed to do something. Yeah, as you can see, like I said, it's very bittersweet. There were some really cool things. I had a lot of really interesting times. I had fun in Korea. The people are very kind, and there's a lot of really great food, amazing culture. In the next video, I might delve into, I was in Korean mask dancing, and I'll tell you about my mask dance mentor out there who would take us out to his forest home and teach us mask dance and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a lot of very interesting stuff that happened. And it was definitely a learning experience. I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about kind of what I wanted in life, but I also learned a lot about what I didn't want in life. And it was definitely an eye-opening thing for someone to come from somewhere like Canada to somewhere like Korea and kind of switch cultures like that and learn so much. But yeah, it was, like you can see, very, very interesting. I'll continue the story another time. Ultimately, I've made this YouTube channel because, I wanted to also kind of document some of the things I did. How did I get here? What was my journey to get here? And slowly but surely, I'm kind of doing that. So later on down the road, I can even look back and kind of see where I came from and how I got to where I am. And hopefully by that time, I'll be an airline pilot wondering how I got to that point. But in any case, yeah, so thank you all for joining me on this very long late departure. Hopefully you're all out having a great day, and you're out flying more than me, hopefully. Unless you're doing your instructor rating, in which case you're probably doing the same thing as I am. But yeah, we'll talk to you all later, and remember, it's never too late. See you next time.